Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday, and it's Jim, it's Matt, and Matthew. Your Boston Red Sox went out and got themselves, a guy who's, in my estimation anyway, pretty good innings eater, Sonny Gray.
Yeah, he's a guy who who really fits the mold of what Craig Breslow and Andrew Bailey, the Red Sox pitching coach, like to do. It
Hmm.
was a he had a below average fastball last year, but his sweeper was right there behind Garrett Crochet in terms of strikeout rate. So he fits a lot of their pitching philosophy in terms of the stuff they like to do. And it's a trade where they got St. Louis to eat $20 million of his contract. So it makes it a much more affordable. He's going to fit financially into a similar mold that the Red Sox had Walker Buehler in last year, except I think he's going to be a much more effective option for what they want to accomplish.
Well, that's good. I mean, and he's over the years. I mean, he's pitched for a number of teams.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, I think you're looking at a pretty good, um, that pretty much deal with so many different opportunities, right? I mean, he's a sinker ball pitcher. He came into the league, he was, through hard. He's had arm injuries, and so now um, it is a opportunity to say, well, here's a Walker Bueller type guy, and is he going to win you 20 games? No, but he's not going to lose you a lot of games either.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. He's going to be a good sixth inning guy, and uh, for what they paid, I thought it was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, at least for, there's going to be a lot of Red Sox people that are
Hmm.
going to be there's a lot of people that are still in the mindset of this is a front office that will not spend. This is a front office that's going to be their big splash, and I cannot emphasize enough how much I do not believe that is true. Every indication suggests that they are going to be willing to add to this roster and add to the roster in terms of starting pitching more in either free agency or via another trade. Either or. But this is not a move that is going to be Breslow's number two starter because he's emphasized how important getting a number two guy behind Garrett Crochet is. This is not that move. Um,
Hmm.
but it is a guy who's going to be a fantastic third option. And realistically, I know financially I said he's like Walker Bueller, but in terms of where he truly slots into the rotation, I think they're hoping to have him fill the Lucas Giolito gap that will be left when he leaves in free agency.
It's I'm trying to think from standpoint of where they go from here, right? There
Hmm.
aren't that many top of the line pitchers out there.
No, it's very much going to be there. So there's a few options that they're going to explore. Joe Ryan via trade is something they'll explore. Obviously, they're going to check in on the Hunter Greens and all of the arms that Miami possesses down there.
Right.
But it's also something where Dylan Cease may be your number two guy coming out of free agency. I know they like him and his ability to strike out a lot. Um, so there's going to be multiple avenues. I would assume I know the way that not only the front office but ownership thinks that you always are going to want the controllable starting pitcher who's young, like a Joe Ryan, who's still on his rookie deal and cost effective. Um, those aren't always those aren't always going to work out in terms of the price point they're asking for. But in that case, I would be nothing short of shocked if that's not the first avenue the Red Sox go down in terms of looking for their second starting pitcher. And another thing that's going to factor into this is where do they spend their free money, or where do they spend their money in free agency? It's a situation where I think they're looking to add. If I were guessing, I would say they're looking to add two big contracts, whether that be Bregman and a free agent pitcher, or whether that be Bregman and another free agent bat. I think they're going to add. I think they saw a need, and they're going to add one via. I think their needs are starting pitcher two, sign Bregman and sign a bat, and you're going to see an avenue of probably trade for one and sign the other, along with Bregman, who you're obviously going to want to re-sign.
Right. Let's go through the NFL injury list for the moment. Steelers fans, it looks like they're going to get there. I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Rudolph was quarterbacking, but that being said, uh, they feel very strongly that Aaron Rodgers will be back for the game this week. So um, we'll see. He's got that broken, uh, broken hand basically. It's not his throwing hand, so that's something. Baker Mayfield, who got injured in the game the other night against the Rams. Fortunately, the injury that he came up with his shoulder, again, not throwing shoulder side, um, was not deemed as bad as they once thought it might be. So I think he's going to be right now, they haven't said no, right? But
Hmm.
they haven't said yes either. So we'll find out later in the week, my guess is. And, we'll also find out, who took snaps, right? Was it
Hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater or was it, or was it Baker? Same thing in Pittsburgh. If you see Mason Rudolph taking a lot more snaps, you know, then it's probably going to be Mason, not Aaron Rodgers. But this time of the year, those guys don't take a lot of snaps anyway.
No, no, they don't. It's not something where you're getting a lot of reps as the second team guys.
Hmm.
Ever. Teddy Bridgewater though in that game against the Rams did look he looked out of shape and unprepared. Um,
Hmm.
so that was a really rough game for him overall. So if it's not going to be Baker, then the Bucks are going to have to work really hard this week because albeit not an extremely difficult division in terms of football, but it's
Hmm.
still something where you need to go out and win the division
Right.
just to secure your playoff spot. So they have work to do in terms of getting Teddy Bridgewater ready for that.
Hmm. Well, in their one of the benefits is that they're getting at least three weapons back over the next few weeks. So eh, Godwin came back. Bucky Irving is going to come back, and oh goodness, trying to think who the other guy is. Wide receiver. Evans. Evans looks like he could come back.
Okay.
So they're going to get some more toys. My guess is that what they'll do is not like what Todd Monken did in Baltimore, and that's run three tight ends. That's a position that we haven't talked a lot about, but
Hmm.
over the past few years, the tight ends have become, almost wide receivers.
Yeah, they really have. It's what everybody looks for in their tight end as well. You
Hmm.
saw it with the fanaticism around Kyle Pitts when he was coming out of Florida just a few years ago.
Hmm.
You saw it with Brock Bowers coming out of Georgia. It's that mold of a guy who's a little bit more of a receiver than he
Hmm.
is a tight end and can do a lot for your offense in terms of not only being forced to have him attached to the line, but also being able to split him out wide and feeling really good about beating one-on-one man coverage with their route tree as
Right.
opposed to just size and strength.
It's funny. Just a quick aside. The For two series when the Bucks earlier in the season had an issue with one of the tackles.
Hmm.
Kate Otten, who was their number one tight end, played tackle for three series in a row. Um, so it's you've got those. Kind of it's like kind of like a hybrid, right? You've got a guy who is fast enough and good with their hands to catch a ball downfield, which is like a Gronk or a George Kittle or Kelsey in Kansas City.
Hmm.
Um, they're big, they're physical, but they also can catch and they can run.
Yeah, yeah, they absolutely can, and I mean, Travis Kelce's success in Kansas City is another reason.
Hmm.
You see that more of that model being worked into the game now.
I never, Kyle Pitts was, a freak when he was in
Hmm.
Florida, but I always thought that he might be a little too small to play tight end in the NFL. But, to his credit, he bulked up and, he's getting he's not a bad blocker.
No.
And so he's doing pretty well. But I've seen. I guess if there's one thing I've seen copycat the entire NFL this year, it's been multiple tight ends.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean and it's not just the NFL either. I know that Todd Hartley at Georgia has been a big fan of 13 personnel and really
Mm-hmm.
was running out of that, and it's something that they've incorporated more at the University of Georgia as well.
Let me ask you a quick question. You're going to go over on Saturday
Hmm.
and be witness to the Georgia Tech game.
Hmm.
Can you recall in your lifetime as a watcher of the Dogs that there's been a bigger game for either team? I mean, this is really an opportunity for Georgia Tech to, you know, continue their push for an ACC championship berth. And of course, Georgia, they're not gonna not get in the playoffs, but they want to be humming when they get there. And
Hmm.
so these are two good football teams getting ready to play in Atlanta.
Yeah, they are. What's it called? I would say the game lost a little bit of its luster just because of Georgia Tech losing last week, at least in
Hmm.
terms of the overall implications.
Hmm.
Just because now Georgia Tech finds it very, very difficult path to the ACC title after losing to Pitt last week.
Hmm.
Um, there still is a path because, I mean, 6-5 Duke still has a path to make it to that ACC title game.
Right.
So
The
there's always a
doomsday
path.
scenario. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, but this is an interesting one. It's one, it's not the first time I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to continue harping on it. I'm sure when I put out something on the game in terms of a preview later this week,
Hmm.
that I'll probably bring it up again. But I'm still not a fan of the fact that this game is going to be played at Mercedes Benz. That takes a little bit of the luster away from it. Just being honest with you, for me personally.
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of the matchup itself, I I struggle because Georgia Tech has had a really good year. You cannot take away the year that Georgia Tech has had thus far.
Hmm.
They have beaten all of the people that they have been asked to beat for the
Hmm.
most part, aside from Pitt and oh God, who was their other loss? I can't.
Virginia.
Uh, was it Virginia?
I don't. I'm just
I,
that. I don't know why. I thought, by the top of my head, I thought it was Virginia, but I could be wrong.
um, but they've played well, all things considered. But with the competition that's in the ACC, it's masked some of their issues.
Hmm.
Their defense has not been good this year. They have won games based on their offense, and as you saw last week, their offense put up 28 points. Solid day for the offense. That's not a bad day. But when your defense gives up 42, it's 28 will obviously never be enough. So they have problems there. And in terms of Georgia, I they're a team right now that I just feel like speaking at the right time. A lot of the pieces are starting to kind of fall into place for them, and in terms of their defense mainly is the biggest factor because their defense has struggled a lot of this year. Their secondary has struggled at times in terms of really finding that second corner to go alongside Dalen Everett on
Hmm.
the outside. And right now, with just some of the way the season has shaken out, they ended up with DeMello Jones starting a couple weeks ago at Texas, and
Hmm.
he played fantastic against Texas. And then he came out against Charlotte, and he played well against Charlotte as well. So they're a team that has now the pieces that are starting to come together, and more than that, there is a different kind of belief in that locker room that even when they face tough late game situations, those are situations that they're going to come out on top of. And this is a game last year where it went to 8 overtimes, and I know Georgia Tech's going to want their revenge and this, that, and the other. I just do not see it happening on Saturday.
Hmm. it's a tough talk, situation. But by the way, without any knowledge of it, why'd they move the? I mean, they used to play Bobby Dodd in Atlanta, and then of course between the hedges in in Athens. Why did they put a neutral site in there?
So Georgia Tech for the past few years has had a standing contract with Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
Hmm.
They're contracted to play one game a year there,
Uh,
and this decision was made preseason that this was going to be their game that they and mind you, this is a game that Georgia Tech chooses. This wasn't a game that Mercedes-Benz picked.
right.
Um, so Georgia Tech chose to play there, and that's why they're playing there this year to fulfill both their contractual obligation and I guess the athletic department of Georgia Tech saw it as the best financial decision for the institution to play that game there.
Well, they're only going about 3 miles down the road, so
Hmm.
it's not like it's a big travel thing for them. But I would have thought, frankly, that you know there's going to be more Georgia fans by far at that game than Georgia Tech fans.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's something that they really thought about when they were considering it, or they just saw dollar signs. I would assume it's the latter, that they just saw the dollar signs and
Well,
decided to go ahead and go forth with it.
yeah.
Um, but I I'm gonna have the luxury to be there. I'm very appreciative, but boy, I can say as much as I'm gonna enjoy being nice and comfortable. I'd almost rather be freeze my butt off in Bobby Dodd Stadium
Hmm.
come Friday afternoon.
Well, we'll see. You know, I can't recall. Asking you about the Georgia situation, I can't recall a year when Florida and Florida State have squared off against each other where A, there's such a lack of interest, and B, two programs that are really at this point in time screwed up.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, Florida's sitting there now. They're waiting on, and the more that the reporting comes out, it appears that they are waiting on Lane Kiffin. Uh, I'm not saying that Lane's going to go there,
Right.
but the reports indicate that it's really more of an Ole Miss and LSU, or an Ole Miss and Florida deal now. That LSU's pursuit of Lane probably wasn't as genuine as I guess Jimmy Sexton would have had us believe. So there is that. But in terms of Florida State, they're now a team that's committed to Mike Norvell long term. That's not going to change. They've already had guys start decommitting because Mike Norvell's staying. Actually,
Hmm.
um, I would feel worse if I was a Florida State fan than if I was a Florida fan heading into that game Saturday, regardless of outcome.
Some of the Florida people I've spoken to, you know, nobody knows what Lane's going to do. I don't think Lane knows what Lane's going to do.
Hmm.
But everybody was like, you know what? We're tired and tired and tired of getting these no-name guys. We want somebody. It's a name. Well, they've had personalities. They had Spurrier. They had Urban Meyer.
Hmm.
Both of them did very well. And so the boosters are saying, look, we're putting a ton of money into this NIL deal, and we're refurbishing the stadium, and we're doing everything we possibly can. We don't want to hear a Billy Napier name. We don't want to hear Alex Golish. We don't want to hear anybody but a name that is going to attract, for them, I guess, more than anything. It's more of a star power. They want a name,
Hmm.
and I don't know what that name is, other than Lane Kiffin. What Plan B is, but honestly, I thought Plan B might have been James Franklin, but that didn't happen, and so I don't know what Plan B is at this point. But we'll find out. I guess decision day is Saturday when Lane goes to his press conference, but
Hmm.
he's got contracts all over the place.
Yeah, I am going to add this. I mean, regardless of how this thing goes, not necessarily for Ole Miss in general, but
Hmm.
for Lane Kiffin himself, for a guy who prided himself or seemed to pride himself on kind of reinventing his image. He had that ESPN 30 for 30, The Many Lives of Lane Kiffin
Hmm.
come out. And it was effectively just him talking about, how much things have changed for him since his time at Tennessee, kind of
Right.
recapping the way things went there. I mean, if you're Lane Kiffin and you do leave Ole Miss, what's changed? That would be my question. What is
Nothing.
and,
Absolutely nothing.
yeah, and it's nothing. So you want to talk about a guy that is
Yeah.
going to villainize himself if he were to make that move? I mean, it's awful. But then with the way they've handled it in the media storm of it all, if he were to stay, it's still an ugly look because why did we act this way the entire time? Why did it have to be like this?
Right.
Why was it the show and the spectacle that it was? Only Lane Kiffin knows that. I'm sure Jimmy Sexton probably had a hand in it, but it's been so played out and so overplayed and so much more public than it ever had to be. But it's public because Lane Kiffin and Jimmy Sexton wanted it to be such.
Yeah. I mean, starting with the Raiders, going to Tennessee, where they wanted to burn his house down, getting fired literally on the tarmac, with USC.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a guy who, 6 years ago was lucky to get the FAU job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin is bad or bad
Mm-hmm.
as a coach, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
He's just bad at creating this chaos. Now, whether Jimmy Sexton or Lane, I mean, is it more Jimmy Sexton than Lane? If I had to guess, okay, and that's all it is a guess. Jimmy Sexton controls pretty much any one of the coaches that either Ole Miss, LSU, or Florida is going to hire.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to create, a storm of disaster where your guys are going to walk in and get a big payday. By the way, the big payday for Lane might even be at Ole Miss, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the extension, that whole routine, that may be. The LSU thing is just kind of, as you said earlier, just kind of, it's been exposed for what it is, and that is they don't know, whether they say they know or don't know, they don't. We don't know that, the governor said that he spoke to Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin said he never spoke to the governor.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's so much subterfuge going on here that it's taken away, and we've said this many times, from possibly the greatest Ole Miss football team that ever put on a uniform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for Ole Miss too, it's sad because they had a bunch of those players come out and make statements that are basically like, we kind of don't care if Lane leaves or whatever. Like let him coach the bowl and it's really more indicative of the way college football is now in terms of these kids' thought process and everything that goes along with it.
Well,
I'd
they
say
got,
it's a sad change.
yep, they got to fix this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't fix it. I mean, when you're firing coaches in the middle of the season, it's just a mess. Urban Meyer the other day was talking, and Urban said, the the transfer portal and all that was just beginning to come in when he left Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, there needs to be a couple of different changes. They can change the commitment dates. They can change the portal dates. They can change because they can change a ton of things that would make it so that if you're going to fire a coach or talk to a coach, that it happens after the last game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He says because right now, whether it's fair or not, Vanderbilt is wondering if their coach is coming back. You know,
Mm-hmm.
then you've got Cable of DeBoer over at Alabama, where there are reports that if he loses the Iron Bowl, he could be out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's all this craziness, and some of it is Jimmy Sexton. But some of it, is the universities and the fans just freaking out because one guy, in this case, Lane, decides, you know what, I'm just going to let this play out. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to resolve it. I'm just going to let it play out. Okay, well, it's the one thing that makes me ill whenever I watch these, signing days, right? Where they got
Mm-hmm.
6 hats in front of them
Mm-hmm.
and they pick up the hat. It's like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm old school.
Mm-hmm.
You either damn know who you're going to play for and commit and play,
Mm-hmm.
or I got no use for you. I don't care if you're a five
Yeah.
star, you know, the second coming. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not fun anymore. That's not that's you're literally you're literally putting yourself out there and saying, okay, well, these 6 schools all want me, but I only want one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're disrespecting all the other schools that you just decided those are the hats you're going to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me when I tell you, those universities and the players on the team are more than happy when you don't pick that hat up to kick your ass whenever the time comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in terms of what signing day is no longer what it was. They used to a lot of kids used to quote on signing day.
Hmm.
They say I'll be continuing my athletic and my academic career for the next 3 to 4 years. That's been a quote that's long since been used in reference to commitments. It's pretty much the industry standard opening statement or statement you say before you
Hmm.
pick up the hat. That doesn't mean a whole lot now. Um, it, I would say it did at one point because you essentially had to, but now they don't have to, and nobody does stick at a place. So you have that and that whole mess. But this college football calendar is unfair for everybody. It's unfair for the coaches.
Hmm.
It's unfair for the schools as well. If you're Virginia Tech, man, right now you've sat back. I mean, you got your hands behind your head, lounged out, going, man, aren't we lucky? We got the job done. We got our guy way early. We got him right in the calendar, and we're going to be good to go. Into all of this madness that is the
Hmm.
college football calendar and the end of the college football year. All these other schools, they don't have that luxury. Missouri doesn't know if Eli Drinkwitz is going to take a different job, and if he does, there's nothing they can do. So there's a bunch of places like that, and you just as much as they're going to try, and I know these athletic departments are going to do their best, but there's no way to be able to properly prepare for whether or not your head coach is going to leave. And it's not fair for the head coaches because the head coaches do still carry the right to explore other opportunities. Like that's not something that's new or is ever going to
Yeah,
change.
it goes way back.
Yeah, yeah. They earn that right based off what they've done at wherever their current institution is. Um, so they for them it's not going to change anything like that, but it does make the job just that much harder on both the coaches and the universities.
Well, the Caleb DeBoer deal is fascinating to me because the people at Penn State are on record saying that if he does get fired, he would be their number one choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a university saying that if somebody gets fired, that's the person I want.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess in fairness to Penn State and that is Virginia Tech. They pretty much went out and did that this year.
Yeah,
Uh,
the Penn State coach. Yes.
in the inverse. So
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
look, I don't. What I guess what I'm saying is I don't mind them saying it. Right.
yeah,
It's just that you know the other fan base. Is the Alabama fan base rooting for Auburn or are they rooting for Alabama this week?
I mean, if I if that was what did it for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama,
Hmm.
what are we doing? Uh,
I don't know.
genuine question. Like what's happening? I understand Brian Kelly getting fired. Like Like that was something that Brian Kelly earned over a few years.
Yeah.
This is Kalen DeBoer's second year. I get what your standard is at Alabama, and believe me, I know how high it is, and I think you probably can have that expectation based on the brand and the resources that they pour into that football program.
Yeah, Saban ain't there no more.
hmm But it's also not. You're not going to find Nick Saban 2.0.
Yep.
If this guy were to lose this game and hypothetically not make the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
he's been on the cusp of it twice. I know it hasn't been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I know it hasn't looked pretty, but he's been on the cusp of it twice. And the first year, by the way, he had a quarterback that didn't fit his offense whatsoever.
Right.
So, it would be a bit of a witch hunt if they went out and they fired Kalen DeBoer just because he lost the Iron Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, it would be crazy, but then again, we've seen crazy a lot.
Yes, we have.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Let's talk a second about the NFL. Can you figure out who's the? I mean, the Rams look like the best team in the NFC now at this moment. But who really is the best team in the AFC?
I know people are going to point holes or poke holes in terms of their record, but you pretty much have to go with New England right now. I mean, no one else has done what they've done to this point. You can point at the schedule all you want to, but they're still 10-2. Like that,
Right.
That's their record. Regardless of who they played, they've beaten who they've played. So you can't take that away from them.
Nope.
So I would guess New England right now, just because they have the best record. It's either as as odd as this is to say, because Indianapolis currently has Daniel Jones as their quarterback, and God, if you told me I was about to say the phrase that I'm about to say, I think Daniel Jones is the quarterback of potentially the best team in the AFC this year. That's a possibility in Indianapolis. They went out at the trade deadline. They got better when they added Sauce Gardner. That was a big addition for them. So Indianapolis has a case as well. But they're really the two teams that have been the most consistent this year. When you look at Buffalo, what has Buffalo shown you this year that makes you feel good about them doing it week in and week out? Nothing. They haven't done it week in and week out. They've lost to some – they have a few inexplicable losses on their schedule right now. So it's just – I'm confused, to be honest with you. I mean, Kansas City was supposed to be Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Cincinnati. And since it isn't, it feels like everybody's thought process is the sky's falling. We don't know what's happening.
Well, Joe Burrow supposedly is going to come back this week. We'll see how that plays out. But in fairness to a bunch of these teams, they've all been banged up. But to your point, so New England plays 12 games. They're 10-2. What else do you want them to do? Right? It's like you got to give them credit because they've won 10 games and nobody else, has done that. Over in the National Conference, the Rams started getting hot and, things are looking good for them. And if they keep playing the way they're playing, then they certainly are the class of that league. One of the things I think that has gotten kind of overlooked is this head-scratching situation of Sam Darnold getting to be a free agent and going to Seattle without Minnesota even thinking about re-signing him.
Yeah,
What the hell was that all about?
I mean, Minnesota took something. They took the most. To be honest with you, it's the most confused I've been on a team taking a chance in a really long time. It just so needless, such a needless decision to make. They let Sam Darnold walk in favor of J.J. McCarthy.
He didn't play for his first year when he got there.
He tore his Achilles his first year. Maybe he'll be good. I'm not confident because his issues aren't necessarily Achilles based. Um, I mean, he's looked bad. He's been bad. He's of quarterbacks qualified, which I think there's like 800 in the history. He's like the
Mhm.
least. He's like next to last in terms of quarterback accuracy. Passes on target. He's dead last in the NFL in passes on target this year. I think he's below 50% in terms of passes that would be considered on target. So he's been god awful. There's just no other way to slice that up, and it's one that I do have to question who made this decision. Was this a Kevin O'Connell decision, or was this a front office decision? Or regardless of who made the decision, you probably have some hell to pay now, just because you're in a situation now where Minnesota had an explosive offense with Sam
Mhm.
Darnold. They had a really good offense before that
Mhm.
with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
They've had a really good offense ever since Kevin O'Connell's been there. And now their offense is horrible. I mean, horrible. And guess what? The only thing that's really changed all that much is who you stuck at quarterback.
Right.
It should fall solely on JJ McCarthy, and it
Mhm.
should fall solely on the decision maker that chose to have JJ McCarthy start as well.
Well, I think obviously JJ McCarthy's the guy out there, so he clearly gets blamed. But I'm going to go with the front office and go, okay, you guys decided to abandon, you know, a guy who turned his career around.
Hmm.
And, okay, he had a bad game in the playoffs. You know, you didn't, before the season, if you told most Minnesota fans that they would get to the playoffs, not just that, because as far as they did, they would have gone, we'll take it, plug that in.
Hmm.
That's good for us. Um, but Sam actually, to me, did a Baker Mayfield, right? Where
Hmm.
people continually gave up on him and gave up on him and gave up on him. And finally, he finds a situation where life is good and he's playing
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
And then you say, I'm sorry, we're not going to pick up that option. Go ahead and move on. All right. He went ahead and he moved on uh, to Seattle, where he's doing fine. Thank you. Um,
Hmm.
so I just, fine. You think JJ McCarthy's your guy? Well, he's not. And you know, hell, to be fair, and I'm not being, I don't know the kid, and I don't want to be mean, but fact of the matter is, he wasn't that good in college.
No, he wasn't. It was one of the more mind-boggling ones. I was never on board with with JJ McCarthy in terms of being picked 10th overall. I hated that idea.
Hmm.
You say, well, what he won a national championship at Michigan. Yeah, okay. In that exact same year that he won a national championship at Michigan,
Hmm.
he threw 8 passes when they played Penn State. 8. They won the game, but they didn't win the game because JJ McCarthy was there. They didn't win a national championship because JJ McCarthy was there. They won a national championship because their offensive line was better than anybody else in the country.
Hmm.
Their running game was one of the best in the country, and their defense was one of the best in the country. They didn't win the game because JJ McCarthy made otherworldly plays with his arms or his legs. They won the game because they got a nice draw in terms of the playoff, and and I mean it was what did you draft him off of? Did you draft him off that one throw in the Rose Bowl? Is that what you were banking on? So it's a similar case to that of. And to be honest with you, I get this draft choice more than I get the JJ McCarthy one. When they picked Zach Wilson high in the draft a couple years ago,
Hmm.
it brings into question, what are we doing? So, you know, they made a poor decision. I don't know how they came to that decision, but they did. So it I just I'm at a loss of words, to be honest with you, in that decision making. You obviously can't go back and change anything, but boy, was it nasty. I mean, that was just so utterly confusing. Because Sam Darnold plays so well. You were the number one seed. Did you fire Sam Darnold off of that playoff game that was in Arizona, by the way, because of the wildfires in the Palisades.
Right. I don't know. It's like you go back in time where, and I've had scouts, that I've spoken to and former coaches I've spoken to, that there's a college quarterback, a successful college quarterback, but that person is not going to translate into the NFL. Gino Torretta in Miami, outstanding college quarterback, not much when it came to the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
There, and I'm not just picking on Gino. There are a number of people who fall into that category, and I personally thought JJ, was good at Michigan for what he was asked to do, which would be basically a game manager. And that was cool. But at the end of the day, I would have been, if I was a Michigan fan, I would have been very concerned if we had a situation where JJ McCarthy had to win us the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were able to avoid that for the majority of his time there. I mean, even in their win against Ohio State, it wasn't JJ McCarthy. When I think back to that first win over Ohio State, when they broke through and they beat Ohio State, it wasn't their passing game. And I know JJ wasn't the quarterback then in that first year, but that wasn't their passing game. In that big win where Ohio State's revenge game, they went into the horseshoe. What do I remember from that game? I remember Donovan Edwards running with the football in his left hand because he couldn't carry it in his right arm because he did something to it, but he ripped off an 80-yarder, and that wasn't his only one of the day. It wasn't J.J. McCarthy making fantastic plays through the air because he didn't have to make fantastic plays through the air. He never had to make fantastic plays through the air at Michigan. He just didn't. And
no, when Jimmy was there, Harbaugh coaching, right, it was defense. They won games by defense.
Mm-hmm.
And offense was good enough to score enough points, because hell, the defense scored a couple of points each. Usually it seemed that way. You could count on defense for scoring you at least 10 to 15 or 10 to 14 points every game on, either picks or fumbles that they shortened the field with.
Just field position in terms of giving your team a short field. It can help. Having a good defense can help your offense so much, not from the sense of like, well, the other team isn't scoring, so that's good. We don't have to score as much. A good defense sets you up with short fields. It gets you turnovers, so you get more possessions and stuff like that. And all that stuff happened during his time. There was no body of work that J.J. McCarthy put together in high school or college, because I'm going back to high school. In high school, when he was at IMG Academy, he was a 5-star. He put up gaudy numbers. He was at IMG and had Carnell Tate outside and, a bajillion 4- and 5-star guys that surrounded him against lesser competition.
Yeah, an all-star team.
Yeah, you're not getting asked to do all this stuff. I'm sure you put J.J. McCarthy on air, and he's going to look fantastic in terms of what he's able to do spinning the football. But right now, his arm, that's not air he's playing against. Those are NFL defenses, and he's missing almost half of the time.
Well, it's in many ways it's like Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
He got the spotlight shined on him because of his dad and the coach, and the players that was around him at Colorado. Now, that being said, I do feel that there was a situation where he got lumped in with if we get Shedeur, we get dad and we get drama. We don't want, so there's that going around, and the plummeting of quarterback, is not, a rumor gets out by whom I don't, usually no one knows. I mean, this goes all the way back to Marino. Dan fell into the Dolphins' lap because people were, accusing Dan of being, in some way, shape, or form, not particularly, focused on football.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big mistake. And so, but I'm not saying, I'm just saying that there are kids in college that are great college quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean they're going to translate to the pros.
Yeah. I will. What I'll say in that case is, to be honest with you, I probably would have taken Shedeur Sanders over J.J. McCarthy. I
Yeah,
know they're different draft classes,
I
but
would.
at least you had a body of work to go off of.
Right,
You knew what Sheddeur's problems were.
right.
You knew that sometimes he held on to it a little too long,
Mhm.
and that his decision making was questionable at times. But you knew what product you were working with. I can't wrap my head around the fact that you didn't know what you're working with in J.J. McCarthy. There's
Mhm.
not enough of a body of work. There never was in terms of passing.
Right.
When a guy is only completing 15 passes when it gets below 50 degrees at
Hmm.
Michigan, which is 3/4 of the season,
Right.
then you don't have a lot to go off of. It's just they drafted him because he's a winner. And man, I'll tell you what, you can't replace winning. So if a guy was able to come in there
Mhm.
and he just has it and he's a winner, that's great. But it turns out that wasn't enough in J.J. McCarthy's case.
No, and
Or not overall.
they passed Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and there's much to be said for a rookie that comes in and says, "Okay, look, I don't know everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to learn." And that was Brock Purdy with the 49ers. Um, and Kyle bringing him along, you know, basically not asking him to do much in his first year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're lucky, you get a coach like that. But with regards to JJ, I mean, has he played 7 games in 2 years?
I don't know. He missed a good portion of this season, so I'm not sure if he's played 7 this year.
Yeah. So I mean, what to your point about body of work? There's not even body of work of him working with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, and it's is he destined to be a good backup quarterback for someone? I have no idea. But right at the moment, he's not an NFL quarterback.
No, it's like their scouting's difficult, and I get that, but it's just I'm so very curious what people saw. It had to be the athleticism. You had to be just banking on athleticism with this guy, because that's all I got for
Well,
every
he's
time.
another Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm. That was one I hated. I hated that one from the start. I hated it all the way through, and I pretty much just got to celebrate and tell everybody how right I was by the time.
It's
Again,
funny.
one of those.
It's funny you and I are in the same boat because I'm like, guys, I've watched this kid play. I have nothing against the kid. I wish him well, but my God, you know,
Yeah.
to and all I kept hearing was he had a 46-inch vertical leap.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
said,
I mean,
great. If he's your point guard, you got somebody.
well, and
I'm
it's
not
it.
arguing the guy's an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you're a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he got drafted on that alone. He didn't get drafted on his body of work at Florida. He didn't get drafted on the film that he put on at Florida. They saw those tools and they were like, we can fix him. And I think that's generally a case of what happens in the NFL is
Right.
pride.
Mhm.
Pride generally kills some of these front offices or some of these franchises for years because they see a guy. They're
And so
like,
he
well,
did.
yeah, yeah. They're like, well, he didn't put it together in college, but we can work with this and we can fix him. Like we see what he has, and we know that we can do something that they were not able to with him.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's really weird from a standpoint of what is it you're doing that makes any sense whatsoever?
Yeah.
And the answer is I don't know.
Mm-mm.
It's crazy, but you do what you got to do. And I think what we're seeing here is kind of the tip of the iceberg with regard to what is happening around both college and pro football.
Mm-hmm.
Is one guy's genius is another guy's disaster.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But right now, um, it's not working out for and we haven't even talked about Love at at, uh, at Green Bay. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that train got off the track fast.
Mm-hmm.
That division is just a bizarre situation. You know, in my lifetime, Chicago hasn't had as good a quarterback right now as they have in Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Bears have had horrible quarterbacks. I'll tell you how bad they went to a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean they've never
athletically,
had a.
no, I mean, people will go back and the '85 Bears and all that, and Jim and and his you know ability to play. McMahon was good, okay, but he wasn't a quality NFL quarterback. He was a serviceable NFL quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It helps a lot when you have you know sweetness back there running for you.
And that defense.
Well, the defense was the reason they got it. I
Yeah.
mean, hell, look at what the Ravens when they won their championship. Trent Dilfer was your quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, and this still is a stat that astounds me. They won the Super Bowl and didn't score an offensive touchdown in the month of October.
Oh my God, that's horrible. Dear God. I mean that's. I mean, great they won it, but
Think
woof.
about that for a minute. 4 games in 1 month, and you don't get and your offense doesn't score a touchdown.
That's that's insane.
So if that doesn't give you an idea of what kind of talent they had on the defense, I really don't know what will.
Yeah. No. That's. I mean, you just now in today's day and age, you can't get away with that. Is I mean,
Now
go
again, they
back to
kick a
that
lot of
thing.
field goals, but still.
Yeah, yeah. You go back to I go back to that Michigan example. We were talking about JJ McCarthy. They're the closest thing we've really had to Alabama since Nick Saban was rolling out different guys like, and with all due respect, but the Greg McElroys and the AJ McCarrons, these guys that weren't lighting the world on fire
Hmm.
at quarterback, and they were just going out there and handing the football to you know pick your Heisman front runner running back that they had back then, and that
They had a
defense.
lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was interesting, that's for sure. All right, well, let's get you a chance to get your rest your voice, so we can do something on Wednesday, so we can make sure that we set people up for a lovely Thanksgiving. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, there's something you wanted to talk about having to do with a high school situation in Georgia before we get out of here.
Yeah, there's a situation, and I haven't done my full research. I don't understand the full circumstances around everything. It's more of me seeing a video and just kind of reading. Actually, it's more than just one video. I've seen a couple, and I've done a little bit of basic research. But in Gainesville, Georgia, they had won a state playoff game last week. And immediately following the game, one of the players on the other team, the losing team,
Hmm.
initiated a brawl, in effect, with the Gainesville High School football team. Gainesville High School reported, I think the number was, it was 28 numbers, I think, was how many they gave GHSA. And
Wow.
GHSA went on and added on 11 other ones that they believe should be suspended. So they suspended 39 total players for their next playoff game, which I would assume is the state semifinals at this point. Um, I hate that. It's disgusting. The Georgia High School State Association has, or Sports Association has a distinct set of rules. And I
Hmm.
understand that a certain number of those of players broke those rules. I believe it was the 28 that Gainesville turned in were the
Hmm.
ones that left the sideline, therefore violating the rules.
Right.
But in certain situations, you have to look at things like you have to look objectively here. there needs to be some discretion about this decision making
Mhm.
because these guys, for some of these guys that you've now deemed ineligible, what are they supposed to do? Is the kid supposed to rip your helmet off and you just stand there and be like, well, I really want to play next week, so I'm just going to let you beat my ass? Is that what's supposed to happen? Or I'm standing on the sideline and go, oh, my teammate just got his helmet ripped off. I guess I'll let him get his ass beat so we don't get suspended for next week's playoff game. No, that's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. I I don't know where these people like. I know that sometimes when you're sitting in positions of power, people get power hungry and this, that, and the other, and they like to flex their power. I don't know if the GHSA is doing that. I don't know what they're doing. What I do know that they're doing is that there are 39 football players on that Gainesville high school team that they may not have the same opportunity next year. They may be graduating next year. This is a once in a lifetime potential opportunity for these guys, and they're taking it away because the other team could not handle losing. And I think you should be able to retaliate and be able to fight back and defend yourself and defend your teammates, because defending your teammates says more about a team and more about your team's culture and togetherness than just watching it happen because you're abiding by the rules. To hell with that. To hell with the GHSA. They make poor decision after poor decision after poor decision, and this is one of the cherries on top right here.
To your point about the, I didn't mean to laugh whenever you're talking about off on the sidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Miami had a famous altercation during the season when they beat somebody, like they stole something,
Mm-hmm.
which they did a lot in the U days. They literally stood on their side of the field, and when the guys started to fight, they kept saying over here, and they literally never left the sideline of,
Mm-hmm.
of their side and beat the crap out of the other team anyway. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I get what you're saying, but the other thing is how many of those 28 kids were actually physically involved in the fight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How
How
many
many?
just how many just ran onto the field because a reactionary thing? You're gonna run on the field, and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna, if somebody punches you, you're gonna punch
Mm-hmm.
back. But
Yeah.
if you're just out there making sure that nothing else happens, just because you're out, being a bystander, you're getting penalized for that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't
It's
imagine 31 people or 39. Was 39? Is that the number?
yeah, 39. What and what you
39. How many? How 30? They didn't have 39 guys fighting. I would
no.
imagine.
No, you go back and you watch the video and you see there's two guys standing at midfield and they're drawing back and forth. And this guy rips one of their helmets off, rips the helmet off of a Gainesville football player. You're like,
Mhm.
well, that's not great. That's obviously escalation. And
Yeah.
then he turns around and the Gainesville another Gainesville player standing there and he tries to start ripping his helmet off. It's so clear who the aggressor is in this situation. And I'll give you this too. There was a prior incident in the game with the same player, I believe, and the officials threw a flag, but they took no action on it. So they have their own questions to answer as well in terms of that. It's something where you are as adults, you sit back there and we have all these guidelines and we have these set age restrictions on when people can do things. You have to be 16 to drive, you have to be 18 to vote, 21 to drink.
Mhm.
All of these things are set in place because we as a society have deemed these guidelines as these like this is when it's accept like people will understand how to do this or when this is an appropriate age to be able to do this. You're now asking 14 to 18-year-olds to be presented with that situation and act with some sort. I don't know how they expected 14 to 18-year-olds to react in that situation. Every last one of them is going to react the exact same way.
Yeah. I mean, and it's after the game, so
Mm-hmm.
you wonder what the heck you know is going on there, because you don't, as I said before, it's a reaction that you've just beat these guys. They then want to extract their pound of flesh. And in many ways, you're rewarding the guys that lost the game.
Hmm. And it's so painfully obvious that that's what happened. I mean, this O team got beat 49-0.
Right.
It wasn't like they lost in the playoffs. They got it handed to them in the playoffs, and they couldn't handle it. Like they could not handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, like if that kid had done nothing, then I doubt Gainesville is probably going to go up and just start a brawl at midfield. Like that's just not going to happen. It feels like it's such an easy, cut and dry situation, and yet they've still came in and obviously they feel like they're acting properly because otherwise they wouldn't have suspended 11 more.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look at the video, but I assume they're going to try to appeal it.
They have. They've already submitted their appeal.
So I mean, it's just crazy, and you wonder. And this is another thing with regard to the coaches in there, right? Coaches, others. I mean, they have responsibilities as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it just boggles the mind whenever you see these things come out, and it's just silly. It's just I really wish I could say that say it another way, but I can't think of it because they just the quote unquote adults in the room weren't in the room.
Mm-hmm. And it's also another thing where it's really unfair to the rest of your tournament bracket as well,
Mm-hmm.
because now some team is going to get to play a Gainesville football team that is missing 39 players.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've completely altered the competitive balance of the rest of your tournament in an unfair way as well.
Well, remember Kirby last year got mad because so many FSU players bolted from the team that whenever Florida State played Georgia in the bowl game a couple years ago, Georgia beat them soundly. They probably would have beaten them anyway. But if you don't have 15 players, and those 15 players are your 15 best players, you're not going to put up much of a fight against Georgia. I mean, FSU would have had if they were fully healthy, FSU would have had their hands full of Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One last thing to your point on that. They have a university, I'm sure you saw it, the UAB kid on senior day, kid by the name of Daniel Mincy stabbed his fellow teammates in the locker room at 10 o'clock in the morning before the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, you see it all the time. With there's players arrested and everything. These are still kids.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be people who do not always make the best choices.
Mm-hmm.
You can chalk it up to maybe them. I don't know if you want to chalk it up to people being bad people, them being kids, naive, young, juvenile, stupid, whatever you have. But in this situation, it feels so plain and obvious. And it's unfair to the 39 players that are suspended. It's unfair to the players that aren't suspended as well, because you've also stripped them of a chance to go win a state title as well.
Well, we'll have to see how it ends up, but right now, it doesn't look good. So, anyway, we will get together tomorrow and have a great look at three amazing, frankly. I don't think there's a clunker on the docket for the next 3 days, and even Black Friday's game is a good game.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So we'll see how it works.
Yes, it is.
Thanks for hanging in there with your throat, and we'll give it rest, and we'll put to work again tomorrow. So anyway, hope you all had a great day, a lot of fun, lot to talk about. So put some stuff there down in the comments. We'll comment on it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, like us. We're nice people. And leave those comments. We will, of course, answer them. So for Matthew, I'm Jim, and we will see you, sometime around 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.